Welcome into the Sports Objective, the unofficial podcast of the Pirates and the original podcast of the Pirates. We have our Pirate preview, and Bubba, I'm very excited and I'm very confident going in this Friday night's matchup, just like I was when the gentleman on the screen when his teams were playing back about a decade ago.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. Like you said, that was actually 12 years ago or close to it. Here in a month or so. But very excited to welcome a guy that I immediately thought of as far as reaching out to this week, and welcome into the show former East Carolina defensive back Travis Simmons.
Thanks, man. Glad to be a part. Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. I told Travis pre-show, Bubba, right before he came on, that the great thing about him is he's a champion. Nobody can ever take that away from him and all his teammates.
Yeah, a lot of great memories from 2008 and 2009. I guess all 4 years you went to a bowl. So just right off the bat, I know we've had you on the show before, but just give us the Cliff Notes version about your time at East Carolina and having the opportunity to be a part of such success. Excuse me.
Yeah, man. It was a lot of fun. Being at ECU. I had only played 1 year in high school, so I was just thankful to Coach Holtz, and staff for giving me the opportunity to come up there and play and show my talents. And I mean, just right off the bat, my freshman year playing with Chris Johnson and having some big wins that year. We played UNC, beating them out in Dowdy. We beat Boise that year for the bowl game, and then of course 2008 sophomore year, was able to overcome a lot of injuries that year, win a conference championship in Tulsa. Then 2009 was able to repeat, win another conference championship, this time at home in Dowdy. And, last year, experiencing with Coach Ruff and, going to another bowl game, it was amazing. Definitely experience that I'll never forget, relationships that were developed, for a lifetime and everything. And, just, being able to always be able to call the place a second home for me. The fans were very welcoming, the whole city, the entire community and so forth. So, I had a great 4 years. Of course, a lot of wins, which you can't take for granted these days. So, I'm very grateful for my actual time at ECU and everything that I experienced.
Travis, obviously, there's been some hard times, 5 straight losing seasons. Hopefully we can there's a chance, crazy enough, the way COVID's been. I didn't predict a bowl this year. I was hopeful, but we still, the way the Pirates are playing right now, they're playing a lot better, playing with a lot of confidence. They have that chip on their shoulder. They almost pulled off, you and I were talking about that, they almost pulled off upset against Navy. They got a big road. But what would you say to, you're a guy, and there's a lot of guys that are champions. You went to that very, it's hard to believe we were joking about Bubba and Kyle and I off air, how we used to get kind of snobby about, oh, really, do we want to go to that bowl? And now any bowl is looking really good. What would you say to your fellow Pirates that are playing right now? What would you say to them that maybe they can do to really up their game and be as successful as you were?
Oh man, I think one of the most important things is knowledge, and that comes with studying and watching film. You can never watch too much film on your opponent because the more you know about your opponent, the more prepared you are on the field. It doesn't matter what physical talents you may have. If you're not strong mentally, and knowing your opponent, it's pretty much going to be a waste. So, I think one of the main things is staying in the film room as much as possible, dissecting everything as far as what the opponent's going to do. And then, after film work, of course, making sure you get your lifts in. Mike Golden, he did a great job keeping us in the weight room. So making sure, you take those very seriously. And, also, third, I would say, make your reps count in practice because, what you do in practice is what's going to show on the field. And that's pretty much, where you harvest, your plant and everything, show the world what you're going to do on Saturday. So, film study, weightlifting, and, making sure you make those reps count in practice and everything. And I think they do those 3 things, man. You see a great turnaround, you see a bowl game, and, we get back to the days where we was winning consistent and whatnot.
I may have asked you before when we had you on, but refresh my memory. What was maybe this is a difficult question for you, but what was the best swag you got at a bowl game? I know you had 4 straight bowls, so not every Pirate can say that, but what's the best swag that you got? Well, maybe that's an easy one for you. I don't know.
Oh man, it's tough because all of them had great things to offer. I would say if I had to say the best swag, it'd probably be like we went to Hawaii Bowl my freshman year. They offered us some Oakley watches and shades and
Oh
everything. We
man.
all know how expensive Oakley is.
Oh man.
So, I was wearing the things proudly. From my sophomore year, junior year, all that stuff, man. So I love the Oakley shades we got there and the Oakley watches. The Liberty Bowl, they had some great gifts for us as well. But I think the Oakley shades and watch topped it off.
Oh man, we got my interest up there. The very first people thought I was crazy back in the day. When I first started working, I was working at Burger King in high school, and I went to Greenville and got a pair of Oakleys. Back then they were only 50, but back then $50 for sunglasses was like probably like what is 200 or 300 now. And people
Right.
thought I was crazy. I said, "Hey, I love Oakley sunglasses," so I bought me some, and that was one of the very first things I ever bought as someone making it. How important it is when you have a check and you're earning money. That
Right.
was cool back in the day. So I love some Oakley sunglasses.
Yeah, I love them too, man. High quality.
No doubt about it.
Travis, take us back to 2008. I heard Coach Rick Smith here recently on Pirate Radio talking about that championship game that season. Tulsa had one of the most high-powered offenses in the country that year, and so that was obviously an extreme concern going into that game. But you guys came out and forced the Golden Hurricane to commit 7 turnovers that day. So what are your memories of that championship game?
Oh man, we kept hearing about it all week, about them having the #1 offense. Coach Hud, Rick, all the guys we kept throwing it in our ear all week during practice. And, at some point you just get tired of it. So what really I think put the icing on the cake was the night before we had just finished our walkthrough and meetings and everything, and we was in for curfew, and probably the entire team was watching ESPN that night. It was a game going on, but obviously they had the halftime show. So they had Coach Lou on the halftime show with Mark May and so forth. And Coach Lou said, it's going to be a long day for East Carolina defense. He made a prediction, going against the offense in the country in Tulsa. So as soon as he said that, man, you could hear the uproar like throughout the entire hallway. I don't know if it was just like some kind of gimmick, with Coach Skip told him to say that or whatnot. But, man, that really got us like, set on fire to really go out there and, really show what it was made of. So, we got out there. Our main goal was just to go out there and hit. And, the turnovers, we already knew they was going to come. And like I said, our main goals was just to, keep everything in front, hit them, and, try and get the ball back for our offense. And, it was just like a domino effect, man. Dakota got the first pick on the first play of the game, of course. And then, the second possession, I got a pick, took it back for 6. And, it just kept going, man. It was like a crazy type day because you definitely didn't think, a team like that offensively would turn the ball over 7 times, because, I mean, it was like a well-oiled machine, by that time. But, we just went out there, we were focused, when we're about the crowd, when we're about anything, it was just us in that offense in between the lines, and we made the most of our opportunities.
Yeah, I remember your 72-yard pick six. It almost looked like the pass was intended for you, and then you had a little convoy with you down the left sideline there. What, you took it back about 72 yards?
Right. Yeah. I pretty much knew I had to take that one back because the year before, first UCF, I got caught. That should have been a touchdown. So my teammates, they gave me hell the entire year after that. I was like, nah, we ain't doing this again. So, I knew once I picked it off, I was definitely heading toward the end zone on that one. I wish I could have scored on that fumble return, but, it wasn't meant to be on that one. But definitely the pick, I knew I had to make it up to my teammates and, house that one.
And you made it look so easy for sure. Hey, Bubba, I told him that I was asking if he had any more years of eligibility so that he could play. We'll get him there we'll buy everybody. We'll chip in. We'll get him a ticket there to the Tulsa and play on Friday night. What do you think, Bubba?
Uh, yeah, we love to have
I
Travis
wish.
in the backfield for sure. And speaking of that, Jaquan McMillan, now a sophomore. Have you had a chance to check him and some of the other defensive backs in the program now out? And what are your thoughts on those guys?
Man, I like Jaquan, man. Last year I believe he was a freshman, and I love his ball skills. He has a real knack for attacking the ball and staying on the hip pocket of the receivers. I think he's going to be the next great cornerback to come out of ECU. I really like what I saw of him last year, and even early this year. I haven't had a chance to really like dissect the entire secondary, but he was one that stood out to me. That I followed. So I'm definitely gonna, pay a lot more attention to the rest of the guys back there. But for the most part, I've seen a big improvement from those guys from last year at least, and from the previous years. I see a lot more communication. Looks like the chemistry is starting to develop again. So as we all know, communication is huge in the secondary, and if you don't have that, you'll give a lot of big plays and whatnot. But for the most part this year, I've seen a lot more chemistry from those guys. It's obvious by the way they played and everything. So I'm definitely keeping my eye on them, especially with Jaquan, because like I said, he's going to be a great one.
Hey, in addition to Jaquan McMillan, take a look at Robert Kennedy and also Sean Dorso. Sean Dorso is a guy that originally was going to Fresno State and then went the JUCO route before coming to East Carolina. So keep your eye on those, because I remember the first time I had the chance to see them play against UCF, and I was like, man, these guys are flying around. I was calling them purple bullets.
Right. Okay, I definitely do that. Definitely.
No doubt. Especially Travis, the I don't know, maybe you guys, one thing that I remember, the swagger that your teams had back in the day in 08 and 09 for the champions, but it seemed like that whole era that when you were playing. And I'm starting to see a little bit of that now with the guys again. Maybe it's what you're talking about, the chemistry. You're talking about communication. And I think another thing that comes to mind, any kind of relationship you have, is trust. Another thing that those guys seem like they really will fight hard for but they also seem like they trust each other because they're all good athletes and they're starting to really learn the scheme on the defensive side of the ball. You got a great, I think, in my opinion, a great defensive coordinator in Blake Harrell coming in the first year. I think he's got those guys really aggressive. If you look at the number of sacks, the TFLs have been what is it, 11, Bubba? It's way up there already, and we've only played a few games.
I don't recall.
I think something like 11 TFLs. But it's a good number of TFLs, and we're starting to get sacks again. And then those X plays we used to have where we're getting like the guys look like they're watching the game instead of playing the game. They're not getting beat like they were getting beat. Like it seemed like they're getting beat like on just about every play, where now it might be 2 or 3 plays a game they're getting beat, and that's a huge improvement from what we've had in the past.
Right. And I mean, yeah, swag that comes with, confidence and everything, because, when you're out there having fun and, making plays, you're going to have that swag, that's just how it's going to be. But, definitely chemistry and trust, that's something we had, throughout my years there. We're very accountable for our own mistakes and everything, and the leadership as well. We had guys like Van Estridge, Nick Johnson, Pierre Bill, Quinn and the list goes on and on, man. They made sure everyone's accountable. They made sure everyone knew their own jobs. So you don't have to really much cover for somebody else, because, when you're not, having that type of like trust in your teammate, you're gonna push your own self out of position. So, we just trusted each other, man, and we had chemistry, was accountable for our actions out there. And, like I said, we just had fun. And, like I said, when you're making those plays and you're having fun, and of course, Dowdy was always hype, you're going to have that kind of swag mentality. So, they're definitely going to actually, get that, as the games go on. Like I said, Coach Harrell, he did a great job for his Navy option last week. You're not going to really see that a lot of times, holding Navy to like 27 points, I believe, or whatnot, some around that range. So, I'm very excited about Coach Harrell and what he can do for the defense, and, the kind of trust he can build, within those guys, and, the actual chemistry that he can help develop and the swag he can bring back.
What?
Travis, taking a look at another game that you experienced in your senior year, you talked about playing under Coach Ruff. Coach Ruff's very first game was against Tulsa on a Sunday afternoon, funny enough, at Dowdy Ficklin. And
Labor Day weekend.
51-49. What are your memories of that day? Obviously, from a defensive standpoint, there were a lot of things that you probably would have liked to have done differently, but just your memories of Justin Jones going up and catching Dominique Davis's, I guess, about a 35-yard pass.
Man, I don't even want to talk about defense that day. That was something new. I think that was like, we had never given up 51 points, since I've been there. So, it was an exciting game, man. Of course for the fans, because a lot of fans love offense. Not so much for a defensive player, but I do remember that last drive. I was just, pretty much wondering, like, man, we're gonna lose a home opener. We had never lost to Tulsa and everything, since I had been there. And I'm like, man, rough start to the last year. And Dominique, we call him Neek and everything. That's my roommate. He just pretty much kept telling everybody in the huddle and everything that last drive when we called the timeout. He was like, "We're gonna win this game," and everything. And like I said, we just pretty much bought into it. Those guys went out there and made plays on that last drive. And of course, when Justin caught it, I was like surreal. I was like, did he really just catch that and everything? And you really don't know what to think at this time because you thinking like maybe replay gonna show he dropped it or it came out some kind of way. But just having that sigh of relief when the referee went on and reviewed the play and said it was good to go. Man, we just all celebrated. Probably one of the best exciting moments I had in Dowdy. We had a lot of exciting times in Dowdy, but that one, that was like probably top 3 because everything looked pretty, slim. That last minute and everything. Some fans even left. And, for the guys on offense to, just dig deep and, find a way to win that ball game. The celebration afterwards, it was just, surreal and, a great moment, in Pirate history.
And, Travis, about that game, that's really crazy. The guys that were redshirt freshmen, Bubba, you know where I'm going with this, Bubba. They won their very first game at Dowdy Ficklin on a Hail Mary, and Shane Carden and company on the very last play of the game at UCF in 2014 that they were finally seniors, they lost a game on a Hail Mary. I mean, that's crazy. The first game they played in Dowdy Ficklin, you win on a Hail Mary. The last game you play in Dowdy Ficklin, you lose on a Hail Mary. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was actually watching that game, man, and I was actually I was with one of my homeboys. I was down here in Orlando, and he went to UCF, and we was talking the whole game, talking trash and everything, drinking, and I'm like, yeah, we done got y'all and all this other stuff, and I'm just all up in his ear, and he's chilling, and all of a sudden, Pyramid catches the Hail Mary. And I really don't know how we didn't get a hand on the ball. I'm not sure how he just got lost in that. He just caught it pretty much in stride. And I'm like, what in the world? And I pretty much had to walk out my own house. I was like, because the guy was giving me hell about it. But, like I said, that is very ironic for those guys, to start their careers with a Hail Mary win and then end it with the loss. It was very heartbreaking and everything. But, they had a great year that year, man. I remember watching those guys and everything. They were ranked as well. So, it was a tough ending, but, like I said, I guess the ball gonna bounce both ways sometimes.
Yeah, kind of a funny story about that. It, certainly not funny at the time, but now, looking back on it 6 years later, even as frustrating as it still is, I was talking to one of my good friends today, and he had been part of the program, finished up in 2006, and he brought what was then or what is now his wife, but they were dating at the time, I guess. And so Sam had come to the game with him, and so he and Samantha are sitting there taking in the game, and then that happens, and so his family just kind of went went silent, and she said, and she didn't know what to say. She was so confused, and she didn't know how to take it. They went from there all the way back to Rocky Mount where they lived, and didn't speak until Sunday morning or Saturday morning, whichever. I'm trying to remember if that was a Friday or Saturday game, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was a Thursday night game, wasn't it?
Thursday night, yeah.
Yeah,
It was a Thursday night game.
Friday morning there.
I can only imagine, because man, I was so shocked too, man. I mean, the drive that Shane and Hardy put together, pretty much almost single-handedly that last drive, to get the go-ahead score, and then UCF, they had some crazy stuff going, because I believe they had a penalty and everything that last drive, and they had to start from like maybe their own 15 or something, and they had a few seconds, and some kind of way, they was able to get to midfield, and they heaved it up, and it was all she wrote from there. I was in shock too.
Like you're saying, it was prior to the Hail Mary. It was a comeback storybook ending for Shane Carden, Justin Hardy, and company. Mm-hmm. They were down 26-9 going into the fourth quarter, and then 30-26, and then the bombshell.
Right. It happens, man. That's football.
Yeah, that very. They had basically they just needed to get a first down, right? So they get a first down, they win the game. But I'll never forget that basically what happened is that fourth down play, and I was telling Bubba, this is what will haunt me. It drives me nuts. Right. And I'm not playing, so I'm not a player. I was just watching the game in the stands. I'm in section 2, and I'll never forget, he went backwards, Carden did, to try to chew up some, time. But when he did, that actually helped UCF.
Right.
He gets sacked, right? He gets tackled, he gets sacked. But if he had thrown the ball like out of bounds, like throwing it like, like just get rid of the ball, like cross like towards the other side of the field, that would have chewed it down to maybe like 6 seconds. And then he wouldn't have been sacked, and they wouldn't have the field position, and they wouldn't have time. And I know that I'm not trying to, it's easy for me to say because I wasn't playing the game, but I could see that like what needed to be done. I'm like, I'm not even a football player. Come on, help me. But
that's the thing, man. We can all see it afterwards or while we're viewing it, but when the game's going so fast, and you got to make a decision in a split second, it's so tough. But now that you brought that to my attention, I do remember a lot of people getting on the time management of the that last drive we had and everything, because we could have moved it a little more. I remember that, but like I said, sometimes it just happens that way. I'm sure Shane them could have did it again. They would have made it a lot better as far as the actual time management. But like I said, when you're out there in the middle of the lines and everything, it's like you're just trying to make a play and just get out there with a win, and sometimes just don't go the right way. But
and hey, Travis, one of the things you guys, and of course the Hardy and certainly Shane Carden, they gave us 2 back-to-back wins against the Tar Heels, and they won't play us anymore. We won 3 straight. So hey, if I have a choice between UCF or Carolina, I'm going to take the UNC.
Definitely, man. We've been giving it to UNC and NC State, right?
We beat them in 2016, but we lost the last 2, unfortunately. Right. But we don't play us now. We got them next year, don't we, Bubba?
There we go.
No, it's in 2022. We play
22. Okay, yeah, 22. All right.
22. Travis, they come to Greenville, but earlier we mentioned the name Rick Smith. Just talking about you playing for him, and you obviously know without a doubt what a straight shooter Coach Smith is, and that's one thing I'll give Coach Smith credit for. After that UCF disappointment, I ran into him at the school I was coaching at the time that following week, I guess it was, and Coach Smith said, hey, he was giving Dave Nickel, who was a wide receiver coach at the time, credit. He said he wanted me to put Cam Worthy back there because Cam Worthy was used to making plays on the ball in space like that on the Hail Mary. But he said I didn't listen to him like I should have.
Yeah, Cam was pretty big. I remember he was a receiver, right? Number 9.
Yeah.
I remember him out there, yeah. Typically with Hail Marys, you kind of want to, have like at least one receiver back there, because they're so used to like playing the ball and everything, and especially if it's tall, you want to be able to get the tall guy back there. But yeah, I think maybe he should listen to Coach Nichols on that. And we all know Coach Smith, he's rarely wrong. Because he knows the game so much and everything. But like I said, that might have been a great idea, I would say.
No doubt. I tell you one thing, Coach Smith, if I don't know about you guys, but whenever he was there and the fact that defense gave up points, he was upset, right? I guess same way with, how about Coach Hudson? I guess he was about the same way. If you guys gave up points, he was mad, right? Even if it was 3 points, he would be mad.
Man, I think the whole thing with Coach Hud, man, he wanted to make sure, we was out there tackling and having fun, because he knew if we was tackling and having fun, we wasn't going to give up a lot of points and a lot of yards. So his main thing, he always told us for the game, make sure y'all go out there, have fun, strike up the crowd, do what we got to do, get the energy going, and, most importantly, just make tackles and everything. And like I said, that's something that we did, faithfully during my time there, because we tackled so much in practice and everything, and we just knew if we could come down and make the tackle on the offense and everything, we could always have a chance to win, have a great defensive game. So his whole mentality was just tackling and having fun, man. And if you did those two, everything else would take care of itself. That was it.
Travis, what are you looking forward to on Friday night as far as East Carolina is concerned? What do the Pirates have to do to beat Tulsa on the road?
7 INTs. No, I'm messing around.
Hey, I'll take it, man. I'm greedy.
Hey,
I'll take it.
No problem.
They look pretty good this year. I think they beat UCF earlier this year. Tulsa. They played somebody last week. I can't remember who it was.
They were down in Tampa. They were playing USF.
USF, yeah.
They beat USF about 4 touchdowns.
Right, yeah. I just think, man, from a defensive standpoint, those guys just need to make sure, they're knowing their assignments. First and foremost, I say assignment football. Not giving up the big play, of course. Making the tackle. I think offensively protecting the football. Getting the ball to CJ. He's a great receiver. You got Proel. I think you have 22 as well. I forgot his name. I think it's Sneed.
Sneed.
Yeah, I love our receivers, man. So I think getting those guys in space and getting them the football offensively, and like I said, defensively, just playing assignment sound football. Making tackles, making plays on the ball. I think they have a great chance. But of course, it's easier said than done, of course. But if they do those things and of course, limit the turnovers and limit the penalties, I think they have a great shot on Friday of getting a win and everything.
Yeah, like you mentioned that comeback victory they had trailing UCF 23-5. They had turned it over 3 times in the first quarter against the Knights, but were able to pretty much for the most part shut them down from that point on, and came back to win 34-26. And in their season opener, they really did a lot of things, in my opinion, to shoot themselves in the foot, but still only lost 16-7 at what is now in top 5 or top 6 Oklahoma State team. That day they actually led 7-3 going to the fourth quarter.
Right, I saw that. Yeah, I mean, Tulsa, like I said, they've always had a pretty nice program there, and those guys, they're gonna fight. We just got to bring the fight as well, and like I said, just play assignment football. Do what their coach to do and limit the turnovers and the penalties, and I think we have a great chance.
Sounds good. Before we let you go, tell folks again, remind fans and Pirate Nation, what are you up to now?
Man, I'm down here in Orlando. I'm taking a lot of slack from UCF fans, but end of the day, whenever they bring up their wins over us and everything, I always bring up the rings that I got. And right now I'm an account manager at ADP. Just right now processing payrolls and taxes and everything. So the job, it pays a lot of amount and everything, but it is stressful at times. But at the same time, I'm very thankful to be a part of ADP, and just trying to take care of my kids and just living every day and just enjoying life, man. So I plan on getting back up to ECU eventually, so I can catch a home game. Just experience, the crowd atmosphere again whenever they let the crowd back into the stadium and everything. But
exactly,
like I said, I'm down here in night country right now, just trying to live life and enjoy it.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, and I tell you what, next year, count on 2021. I've been telling that people for the last couple of years. 21 is going to be the year we break out and have an amazing year with Coach Mike Houston. The staff has been tremendous. 54 new players. The recruiting has been great. Getting a lot of talent in there, and it's going to be a nice little ride. Like hopefully, like you guys, we can win some conference championships. So it'll be really awesome.
Definitely, yeah. I think with it being year 3, that's definitely the year we should see a huge spike. So I'm looking forward to it, man. Should be a lot of excitement coming up next year.
All right, Travis. Appreciate you, man, so much coming on. And we'll talk to you again real soon.
Awesome. Y'all have a great night.
All right. Thanks to Travis Simmons. That was awesome. And now someone we've had on the show for the last couple of years, but we haven't since we started streaming. That was one of the good things about COVID, right, Bubba?
Yeah, she's been on the show multiple times before, but like you said, in the audio-only format, welcome in from the Tulsa World, Kelly Hines.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No doubt. Big game on Friday night. And the last time we had you on, we were worried about Coach Montgomery's job, but I think he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. Am I right?
Man, it's crazy how fast things can change, even though Tulsa's had only 3 games this season. Certainly, I think that Phil Montgomery's job seems to be safe at this point. I think during a pandemic, probably it's going to be difficult for any school to make a change, but going into the year, he kind of felt like this was a defining season for him. And certainly, up to now, things have gone really well and better than I certainly expected.
They're only blemished up to this point, Kelly. You probably heard me as you were in the green room just a moment ago, reference that game in Stillwater in the season opener. Were you there that day? And
yeah.
And what were your thoughts on that game? Because I watched a large percentage of it, and I'll tell you, Tulsa really had their opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the crazy thing about that game, to be, actually leading in that game and have those opportunities and, not quite be able to pull it off. The offense really struggled in the first half. The defense played really well, but, you thought that game was really there for the taking, and that was pretty surprising. Oklahoma State's quarterback, obviously, they had some quarterback issues when their starter got hurt, and then they weren't really able to recover from that until they put in the third string guy. But, I certainly felt like that game could have gone differently if not for all the penalties and just, the offensive issues. But, I think some of that you can attribute to Tulsa having, the huge break, a big disruption to their fall camp that made them not as prepared for that game as they probably should be. And so, but going out of that game, you felt like if they had more time to get things together, they could do some good things this season, and I think they've shown that since then.
I know there's been some interruptions everywhere when it comes to COVID-19. Can you talk about, from your being the beat writer, can you talk about your vantage point about the team and the program? How has Coach Montgomery and staff and the players handled such a tough time, adversity?
Yeah, I think they've done really well because, you could see how that would be, detrimental to a team, especially with all of the challenges that Tulsa's had. They've had 5 games to this point, postponed or canceled. That's significant when you're a team that's, coming off 3 losing seasons. You're trying to get things going. You feel like you have a good team, but you don't have opportunities to go out there and show it. But I feel like they've just kept going back to work. They've had these games, twice now during the game week. On a Wednesday and a Thursday, they've had games canceled or postponed. And you could see how with a young, immature team that would really carry over. Instead, they've handled it pretty well. That part has been impressive. It's just, more of a mature team than what Philip Montgomery has had in the past. And I think you're seeing that when they're able to overcome, these issues.
One of the excellent things about this team is the way they play defense, giving up just over 18 points a game, a little less than 350 yards a game. You saw it in the opener. Oklahoma State made a quarterback change because they couldn't get anything going, and they held the Cowboys to less than 300 yards that day, and everybody knows what they're doing since then. So just talk about that defense. I know one of the guys leading the way is redshirt junior linebacker Zaven Collins.
Yeah, I mean, this is a defense that had to replace a lot of key pieces, but had a lot of players who had gotten experience in a backup type role. And then going into this year, it was kind of a matter of, how were they going to, replace the guys that they'd lost. And I think that they've been able to do that really well. It starts with David Collins. I mean, that's an NFL caliber guy who's just playing exceptionally well, very smart guy. And when you have someone like that at one of your linebacker spots, it really takes some pressure off of everyone else. So I think this defense is working better together than any defense that Philip Montgomery has had. And, they were down 4 defensive starters in the game at USF. They had 2 guys who didn't make the trip, 1 guy on the sidelines, and then they had another linebacker who was ejected in the first quarter for targeting. And for them to, perform the way that they did on defense, down 4 starters, I mean, that's incredibly impressive. And, I felt like the defense had a chance to be good going into the year, but you still have to go out and do it. You still have to, fill those shoes of guys who, they had 2 guys who, were drafted to the NFL. And those were, key pieces that they lost. And to be able to replace those, I mean, that's been as impressive as anything. I mean, Tulsa's up there in the top 10 in a lot of defensive categories, including tackles for lost yardage. And that's something that they really haven't done in the past. So to be disruptive like that has been a huge advantage.
Yeah, you talk about tackles for lost yardage. David Collins has 8 of those, a couple of picks, 3 sacks, and he's 6'4", 260. So he has that size that you referenced in terms of him being an NFL-type talent. He's a guy that was a freshman All-American back in 2018, and he had close to 100 tackles a season ago.
Yeah, and he's a guy who I remember the first time I saw him in person, I didn't know who he was. I mean, he's from near Tulsa, but, played Class A football, which is, that's a very small school here, Hominy, Oklahoma. And, the first time I saw him at a practice, I was like, that guy just looks like he can play football. Like, he looked like he could play any position. And for them to, put him at linebacker and develop him, and for him to just have the wherewithal to learn a new position. He played quarterback and safety in high school and has really adapted to the linebacker spot and really enjoys it. And, he was asked about it this week, what's that been like, having this sort of, career when nobody really knew who you were. And he was like, I don't care what position they could have put me at any position. I would have played it. He says all the right things, but I think he means it. And he's just honestly been a delight to deal with. He's just a very unassuming person. And for him to have the career that he's having, I honestly think if he's able to continue, with a season like what he's having, that he'll probably leave after this year, because why wouldn't you? He's going to get his degree in December, but he's just not the type of player that, Tulsa is used to having. He's probably the most talented player I've ever covered. And for him to be, at Tulsa, he didn't have any other Division I offers. I mean, that's pretty incredible. His story is pretty interesting.
Kelly, one of the things that, from our vantage point, we've been talking about is certainly the size of the defensive line, the size of the lines for Tulsa. How big of a team? That's what we've heard all week. From your vantage point, how true is that? You're close to those players. Obviously, I'm sure you have Zoom calls like we are, so we're not on the practice fields like we normally are. How big are the offensive, defensive line for Tulsa?
I think what strikes me more than anything is the length that the defense has as a whole. I mean, I saw it was during a game last season. ESPN had somehow figured out the average height that Tulsa had was second on defense, was second only to Georgia in all of FBS last season. So, most of those guys are back. Not all of them, but most of those guys are back. I mean, they have corners who are 6'3", 6'4". I mean, that certainly helps. But, on the line, certainly that's been the case. I remember whenever Philip Montgomery came in, his emphasis was going to be on getting those bigger linemen, because that makes a huge difference. And, when you talk about length, the shortest guy on defense is probably Jackson Player. And he's a nose guard who really could play any position on the defensive line, but he is just like a freakish athlete for being, maybe 6 feet, and doesn't fit the mold necessarily of a nose guard. But he has been really disruptive for opposing offenses, and he doesn't really even factor into the length that they have on defense. So I think they've recruited really well, especially in the secondary. They've done a great job of finding those athletes, the guys who, teams aren't really sure what to do with them. They put them in the secondary and use their speed and athleticism. And it's worked really well. I mean, Darren Ray, who's been a really good safety for Tulsa, he was a high school quarterback athlete type, and they put him back there, and he's done great.
Kind of shifting over to the offensive side of the ball, you have a veteran quarterback, Zach Smith. So touch on him, but then also some of the skill guys, because just looking at the carries that guys are getting, I know Prince leads the way with more than 230 yards per game and nearly 6.5 yards per carry. But there are other guys that are key contributors as well in the ground attack.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the offensive line being quite a bit better than what it was last season. Those guys are older, more experienced, and they struggled early on last year, and lots of penalties. I think Zach Smith was sacked like 36 times. I mean, it was not ideal. So some of that was him taking a little bit too long to make his decisions, to make his move. But I think the offensive line has come a long way, and I think Zach Smith has come a long way too. I mean, he's a senior. He's certainly been around the block. He played at Baylor and had some success there before he wound up at Tulsa, and he's progressed. I mean, that's what you need from a senior quarterback, is just to keep growing, and he's done that. I think it really started with that game at East Carolina last season. You started to see him, get into a rhythm, and he's shown that this season. But having just about everybody back on offense has helped too. Shamari Brooks is out for the year with a torn ACL, but they still have Corey Taylor, who's a senior. And then they brought in Deneric Prince, who you mentioned. He's a transfer from Texas A&M, who is really different from the other running backs on the team. He certainly has that SEC speed. He's done really well. And, receivers, there are quite a few. You could mention Sam Crawford Jr., Keelan Stokes, Josh Johnson. They have a lot of weapons. It's a deeper receiver rotation than what Tulsa's had these past few years. So they certainly have a lot of weapons, and I think the goal is still to be balanced run and pass, and you saw that against USF. It was almost 50-50. They definitely had success with both, and that's what they need to kind of open up what they want to do on offense.
Kelly, one of the things that's been big for East Carolina this year has certainly been special teams. How are the special teams this year for Tulsa?
I think it's been better. Certainly in the game against UCF, there were some huge plays on special teams. They've given up some big special teams plays too. So those kind of cancel each other out, I guess. And, the kicking game has been better for sure. I think there's still some room to grow there, but I think they've been solid. I think that, the big thing with special teams is, just don't screw up. I think that, if you are able to be somewhat consistent with a kicking game and just don't give up big plays, I think that's where Tulsa is. They feel confident enough in their offense and their defense that they don't have to rely on special teams as much as maybe they have in the past.
Yeah, Kelly, talking about those special teams, one of the things that really jumped out is the fact, yes, you've only played 3 games, but you've only attempted 3 field goals, and the longest make thus far has been from 34 yards.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still, some room to grow there with the place kicking for sure. They brought in a freshman who's on scholarship, but for whatever reason, he's not been available the last couple of games, which this year, that could be COVID related, that could be injury related. You have no idea what the reasoning is behind that. So they've had the guy who's handled kickoff, Zach Long. He's been their place kicker these last couple of games. So I don't know what the situation is going into this week, because I know they feel pretty good about Tyler Tipton, the freshman. He just I don't know what his availability is.
Kelly, refresh my memory. I believe this was the case, but we were talking to you last year. Is this the last year for Coach Montgomery's contract? I remember, Kyle, we were talking about that last year, I believe. And is there going to be a contract extension? I would think there would be. but it seems to be kind of Kyle was talking about that recently again, how it's kind of odd that the very fact that you don't go ahead and extend someone, you wait to their last year of a contract.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. I mean, the situation at Tulsa is kind of unusual right now because not only do they have an interim athletic director, but they have an interim president. So the people who are involved in those decisions, may not be the ones who are going to be on the job like down the road. So I think they need to figure out some of that stuff with the administration. They brought in their interim athletic director and told him it would be 9 to 12 months of an interim stay. And so that's a long time to have an interim athletic director. Fortunately, it's a guy who was athletic director here, previously, so he knows what he's doing. But I think that they have to figure out those things before they make a decision. But the financial situation at Tulsa is not great either. It's not great in a lot of places, but they've already had some pay cuts and layoffs and all of those things. So they have some stuff to figure out for sure.
No question about it. As far as the game, what are your keys to the game? What are you looking for on Friday night? I assume in the press box. We only one of us can be in the press box, and we only have 3,500 fans right now in the stadium. But I guess before we ask you the keys, how is that going right now as far as the fans are concerned?
Well, this is the first home game for Tulsa this season. It'll be almost a year since they've had a home game. I think they're planning for it to be about 4,000 fans, capped at that. Trying to limit it to as few as possible, but still have a decent crowd. Which attendance has been an issue for Tulsa in the past few years. So 4,000, doesn't sound like very many, but I think it'll be fine. I think that the keys for Tulsa will be just, to keep things going. I mean, this team needs to establish some momentum because, they haven't had back-to-back games this season, with weeks with back-to-back games. They haven't had that. So I think the big thing will just be to, establish the run game, get Zach Smith, into a rhythm. I think the defense is more than capable and against just about anyone. They played well against Oklahoma State and Central Florida. Those are two really good offenses. I think they're going to handle themselves fine against just about anybody. I think it's more on the offense to just generate some momentum and keep things going as now, hopefully, Tulsa will have games in consecutive weeks.
Kelly, you talk about how it's Tulsa's first home game. You were supposed to play the Bearcats, the seventh-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats at home. I guess a couple weeks ago now. So just talk about that. I know it's been rescheduled for December 5th.
Yeah, I mean that was a frustrating situation for Tulsa because they felt like they were going to have an advantage in that game. They felt like going into that game they had things going really well, and Cincinnati was going to be down some players, and then you get to only a couple of days before the game, and then Cincinnati says that game they're not going to be able to make that trip, and then it was really disheartening to see Luke Fickell say several days later, oh, we could have played that game. I think that was frustrating for Tulsa, and they're really interested in that December 5th game because it was kind of annoying to have prepared all week for that game and for it, well, really 2 weeks. They had 2 weeks leading up to that game. They were preparing for Cincinnati, and for it not to happen, it was very frustrating because they felt like they'd done everything that they could to make that game happen, and for the other team to not have done that was they were not happy. So that's happened several times this season, and that it's going to happen this season. But it just, Tulsa and Houston, it's happened to them quite a bit. And so, honestly, I think everybody's just holding their breath, just hoping all of these games get played because, for Tulsa to be having a good season and to, maybe be in the mix for a conference championship, you just want to play the games that are on your schedule and prove that you're, worthy of being in the conversation. And when games are postponed and canceled, that takes an opportunity away.
And to be quite honest, I've even said I believe that Tulsa is, not because you're on our show, I've said it beforehand, that I think that Tulsa is going to be the dark horse. I think you guys will be playing, potentially, you could be playing Cincinnati twice. I don't know how the fans are feeling or how you're feeling, but I really believe that you might be playing Cincinnati 2 times this year.
I mean, you look at ESPN's power index, which I don't know how much stock you could put in that at this point, but Tulsa's favored in all of their remaining games, including Cincinnati, and you still have to go out and do it. That means nothing, but for that to even be the case, at this point in the season when they've played only 3 games, somebody thinks that they have a chance. So, I think that spreads to confidence within the team, and I don't know that that has been there these past few years when you're losing games left and right. I mean, they've won back-to-back games for the first time since 2016. I mean, and back-to-back road games for the first time since 2010 that has just not had that success. These players on this team have, they weren't around when there was success. So I think that's been a good experience for them, but they still have to go out there and do it.
Kelly, you talk about being able to have 4,000 or so at Chapman Stadium on Friday night. We would love to have, I think that's roughly 13 to 14%. Right now in North Carolina, we're stuck at 7%. So for our home game against Navy a couple weeks ago, we had 3,500, and we just found out today that we're going to have 3,500 for Tulane on November 7th. So obviously, if we were able to have 13 to 14%, that would allow us to have nearly twice as many fans. So that would hopefully it'll happen. Maybe the final home game, or what is at least right now scheduled to be the final home game against SMU on November 28th.
Well, the COVID situation here has not been great. Things have gotten just worse every day. So I'm honestly, I'm not surprised that they're going to have 4,000 fans there, but that's better than none, because I think you could totally justify not having any fans there.
No question. It's going to be a wild ride. I normally say that because of conference play, but this year you have the wrinkle of COVID-19 that really makes that even, capital letters. Kelly, before we let you go, how can people follow you, your work on not only social media, but obviously the Tulsa World?
Yeah, you can find my content on tulsaworld.com. Just search for it, find it under TU Sports. You can find me on Twitter also, Kelly Hines TW.
Well, thanks again. We'll have to get you on real soon to talk some hoops again, and enjoyed the visit as always.
All right, thank you guys.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, Kelly Hines there, and Bubba, we will have her back to talk. I didn't see your note there until at the end there, but to have on hoops. But great to have her on. She's awesome, and what a great game. I tell you what, I'm really, I think at the beginning of the week or weekend, I should say, I was not feeling as confident. I'm feeling a little bit better about the team. I think that they have had another great week of practice. Our previous administration, when they said that, it didn't mean anything. But I think when you hear Coach Houston say that they've had a great week of practice, it really means that they've had a great week of practice. I think it's going to take a tall order. I know that. I'm not a dummy that I know they're a very good football team. But, I think our football team is on the rise, and it would have to be, wouldn't you say, Bubba, a nearly perfect game on Friday night at 9 o'clock our time. It's going to have to take mistake-free football. You hear all the usual cliches of no penalties and limit or have no turnovers.
Yeah, we'll have to play well in all 3 phases to give ourselves a chance in the fourth quarter. Like I mentioned earlier, in the Golden Hurricane, giving up just over 18 points a game. Meanwhile, they're averaging right at 28. Offensively, they're good, but at the same time, they've had their issues for sure. They're just converting less than 35% of their third downs, so that's something to keep an eye on. If we can put them in some long yardage situations, obviously that's the case with any team, but even more the case, it seems, with Tulsa, that they haven't been particularly good at converting this year. On the turnover battle-wise, we're -2 for the season. Tulsa's +3, so we'll probably have to flip that, and we're going to have to definitely find a way to win the giveaway, takeaway, convert more third downs than we typically do. They're giving up a little over 130 yards per game on the ground. Meanwhile, we're rushing for, 180, 190. Despite that 50-yard effort at Georgia State, and that's because in 3 out of our 4 games we've run for at least 210 yards, which is awesome to see. But I really think that we may make it a lot closer than people think, but like you're saying, I think we probably will come up a little short, but it will be much closer than 49-24 like it was last year at Dowdy Ficklen.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. We got a few minutes left of the show. You want to go ahead and do our picks? What do you think about the game?
Yeah, I will. Let's see. As far as an exact score, and while I'm coming up with my exact score,
I have mine. If you want me to.
Something else I failed to mention that really jumped out to me earlier today. I knew we had not done a good job in the red zone, but 15 trips to the red zone, Dave, we've only scored 7 touchdowns. So not good, obviously less than 50%. That is definitely going to have to change. It's going to be hard to get those red zone opportunities against Tulsa. But so when we do get them, we're going to have to cash in much more effectively than we have thus far. But I will go with, let's say, Tulsa 35, East Carolina 20.
All right. Well, I'm going to be I've said all along, my gut feeling. You know, they always say go with your gut as far as number of points. Seeing that high power, their way that they play offense, I'm going to go Tulsa. I normally pick the Pirates, but this is a tough one this week on the road. Tulsa is really, really good this year. I like what they're doing. I'm going to go Tulsa 44, East Carolina 34. I think it's a 10-point game. No moral victories, but again, Bubba, I think this is going to be a 4-quarter game. One of the things I love about this program under Mike Houston, you saw last year bright spots, some where it was close games. You and I talked about it before Mike Houston came. Man, if we could just get in the fourth quarter, if we could just have a competitive ball game. But when you don't even have a competitive ball game, when we first started, you remember when we were first starting to do the show? I mean, we didn't have the fourth quarter games that, where now with basketball, for example, and football, where we have these tight games, competitive games where we really have a shot to win, and where there's a touchdown here or a field goal there, and basketball with Joe Dooley, if it's a couple 3-pointers here or there, you can win games. And I like the fact with Houston now that you look at special teams. I'm very happy with there. I love with the defensive coordinator, like we're talking about earlier with Blake Harrell, that he's got those guys really playing well as far as knowing the scheme. And I think that I don't know that to be the case, but I would love to talk to him one-on-one about the very fact it looks like that they've simplified things, and where guys are just pretty much, doing their job and staying home and doing really well, learning about tackling.
Yeah, as far as being more competitive, you think back to the John Thompson era, and then when Skip Holtz took over, we were right there on the verge of going to bowl. His first season finished 5-6 after winning our final 2 games. But early on that year, we were much more competitive. Kind of the same thing here, obviously a lot different, but that is a parallel, just the way you feel like you have a chance. And you feel like there's a reason to go to the game besides just blind support of the team. I mean, you're going with the hope that you can actually pull the game out and win the football game. So that's obviously nice. And despite what a lot of folks say, and I understand, when you get blown out, that is in one way it's a little bit easier to get over because there's not all the what ifs and the
right.
And, if we'd have done this, we could have won the ball game. If we'd have done that, we'd have won the ball game. But I would much prefer to be competitive and have those what if scenarios, because showing up and getting beat 62-14 and 58-3 and stuff, that just kills you. I mean, just, obviously, I know I'm stating the obvious, but just when you're going through that, it's just zaps your passion and enthusiasm.
Oh, of course. And it shows that this guy, being Mike Houston, his staff, the players, everybody's bought in. You can tell it. Coach Houston's talking about the locker room now. He really likes these guys. They're playing really hard for him. That's another thing, Bubba. I was talking to Travis earlier, Travis Simmons we had on. And you remember back in the day when we lost games, then they were close games, and there were games that were like, oh, man, we lost it. But they were really fights. They were like heavyweight fights, right? And then now it's like we kind of just under the Mo era, for example, we just rolled over after that South Carolina game that first season. It looked like we just rolled over a lot of times and just gave up. And with Mike Houston, we've gone from a really bad football program, which is really difficult for me to say, one of the worst in FBS, to now where you're seeing last year bright spots, this year no moral victories, but the fact that we played Navy, we had them on the ropes. It hurts not to have Holt Nailers like we're talking about. But you're seeing this team, they're making the climb now. And I think that when we're at the top again, Bubba, it'll be sooner than later. It's going to be, I don't know about you. I was telling some Pirate fans the last week or two at work, I was telling them that when we're at the top again, we won't take it for granted because it's been a long time since we were at the top.
Yeah, being on the bottom like we have for years now, it's certainly going to give you an appreciation for the success that we'll be experiencing here in the next year or two. I have no doubt, as you say, that it's on the way, and everything we've been through will make it all the sweeter.
By the way, Bubba, before we go, I know we're going to promote some things, but I wanted to mention today, thanks to you, both of us caught this, but as far as Joe Dooley, speaking of the Pirates and basketball, very happy to see a couple things there if you want to mention that.
I'm sorry, Dave. I was distracted. I had a phone call. You said, I know you mentioned East Carolina basketball and Joe Dooley.
I was saying, yeah, the very fact that we got some good news today. There was a couple takeaways there that one that I'll throw out there. The very fact that Jaden Gardner, no surprise, being preseason first all AAC. And there was another thing that you and I were really happy to pleased to see is where the coaches voted the Pirates.
Yeah, well, I say we were pleased. Certainly not pleased to be picked 9th out of 11th, but anybody that knows the situation knows where we're coming from.
Right.
What I was pleased to see and surprised to see, quite honestly, it's not that I don't think we can be better than Temple, because I certainly do, but just given the fact that we haven't done it. And I know last year I think we may have even been closer than some would have guessed in the standings, and we beat those guys in Minji's and split the season series. But I was surprised that they picked us ahead of Temple in the standings. We were 9th, they were 10th, and then you had Tulane in 11th.
Yeah, and it's usually anybody knows the program. We lost obviously Connecticut, so we have UConn. So we had 12 teams. Now there's 11, and it's always Tulane and East Carolina fighting it out to be the cellar dweller. And it's not to be mean about the program. I'm a huge supporter of Joe Dooley, huge supporter of the basketball program, men's basketball and women's basketball. We love Kim McNeil. She's doing a fantastic job with the ladies for Lady Pirates, but this particular case with men's basketball, very excited with Coach Rockerford. You look, we had the coach Fathery on there from Chancellor White that's coming in 22. We're starting to get guys now that, Bubba, we might have had an outside chance, but I think they're starting to really to buy in and say, oh, wow, East Carolina is for real. And you have a kid like Jaden Gardner who stayed with us his 3rd year. The guys that came in last year, they're starting. Speaking of competitive, our basketball program, I mean, I remember there was another years ago, there was a guy that I was talking to that's a Pirate alum, and he said, man, if we could only lose by, I forgot what team it was January of like 07. And he said, man, if we could only lose by 15 tonight, instead of getting blown out by 30. And we looked at each other in that moment and just shook our heads, say, how embarrassing is it that we're more worried about losing. We know we're going to lose, but we're worried about how bad it's going to be. And now you fast forward to 2020, where I think the biggest opponent is going to be COVID. I don't think it's going to be the opponents. I don't think our guys are going to be intimidated by the AAC like we've had in the past, or even Conference USA.
Yeah, I agree. You can definitely tell. You could sense it toward the end of last season. You saw the confidence that we were playing with on some of those near misses, like against Cincinnati, a game that we led by, I think, 9 or 10 points in the final 10 minutes or so of the ball game. And yeah, Minji's was rocking. We just couldn't seal the deal. So now that's the difference. This year, I think, last year we finished 5-13. This year we're playing 20 league games. So in order to, approach 500 and, win 8, 9, 10 ball games, we're going to have to find a way to, like we've talked about ad nauseum, knock down some more perimeter shots, convert some 3-point opportunities, and win some of those close ball games that will put us over the edge and put us in the middle of the pack, hopefully in the conference.
That'll be fantastic. Finishing ninth, I think a huge accomplishment you're right, Bubba, to finish 6th or 7th in the league is what I'm hoping for. Realistically, I think that is obtainable, and eventually, it'd be great to win. Finishing 6th or 7th or picked 9th would be a really a huge disappointment, knowing that we would have a rebuilding year. Coach is rebuilding the whole program from the bottom floor up, and can't wait for. I tell you one thing, I've always said in my lifetime, I would love to have a winning program in my alma mater in college basketball. You know how much I love it. You hear me talk about it on and off the air probably way too much, but I'll be happy to see that. Do you have anything? Obviously, want to make sure that Pirate fans know that if we win, we definitely will be up and do a very special Pirate playback tomorrow night. Early, well, I guess that would technically be early Saturday morning. It'll be at least 12:30 or more. But if not, we would definitely do it sometime, I guess, on Saturday. But I know you're working on, we'll have some folks for the Inside Slant on Saturday morning, right?
Yeah, we'll promote some of our old content as well as our upcoming content that you just referenced. The old content, you talked about getting the commitment from Chancellor White out of Richmond, Texas. They're about 30 or 40 minutes southwest of Houston. We caught up with Ruben Fothery, who's Chancellor White's coach, and Chancellor White's part of that 2022 class. Coach Fothery had, as you would expect, nothing but great things to say about him, and everything that he brings to the table is a 6'6" shooting guard. So definitely go back and check that out, whether it's here on Facebook and YouTube or Anchor, SoundCloud, any of the other podcast platforms. And there are, about 20 or 25 of them now.
Yeah.
In addition to that, our upcoming shows, and you talked about the Pirate football playback, as we'll reflect on the game with the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Then we have the Inside Slant preview in Week 9 of college football. Coastal Carolina is one of college football's tremendous stories. The Chanticleers are still unbeaten. They will be in Atlanta taking on Georgia State this weekend, so we'll catch up with their beat writer, Alan Blondin. That will be at 9 a.m. on Saturday. As far as when we visit with him, the show will be kicking off at 8. And we'll also we'll have a recorded interview from Friday afternoon with Chad Brindle, Cincinnati's beat writer, or not beat writer, but writer for Bearcat Journal. He is their Stephen Igo, if you will. So we'll talk to the two of them, some other folks, including Rennie Ngolia from ESPN. Rennie will be out in San Marcos, Texas this weekend, calling the Louisiana Raging Cajuns game against the Texas State Bobcats.
That should be fantastic. Well, Bubba, as always, I appreciate your hard work behind the scenes, putting the show together. He and I are great collaborators. We work really hard on that. And Bubba, you appreciate all the hard work there. And we make a great team. And I can say that. And I'll put our work against anybody's for sure. Thank you for all your hard work. And I want to thank Kelly Hines of the Tulsa World. And, of course, Travis Simmons, former DB for the Pirates, winning conference championships in 2008 and 2009 for Conference USA. And, of course, playing in 4 straight bowls, an amazing feat. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, you may be suffering right now as a Pirate. We feel your pain in Pirate Nation, but that's going to end very, very soon, sooner than later, with Coach Mike Houston. All right, Bubba, do you have anything before we go?
Go Pirates. Make Dave and I and then a lot of other folks wrong, prove us wrong on Friday night, 9 o'clock kickoff, ESPN2 out at Chapman Stadium.
Sounds good. You've been watching and listening to the Pirate Preview right here on the Sports Objective. Good night, and everybody. And as always, go Pirates.